Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anglo-Korean. In this episode, I'm going to be providing you with some tips from my own experience of being a native English speaker travelling in Korea, and what helped me to interact with people and to find my way around. So my first tip is to try to be brave and throw yourself into things. I completely understand that it can be a bit nerve-wracking and you will feel intimidated and you won't want to make this kind of effort. You won't want to try speaking to people in Korea, you'll feel embarrassed about it. But making an effort goes a very long way. You will find that people very much appreciate any effort that you make to speak Korean. You're not going to be judged or criticised, but rather people will be really happy that you're making this effort. They'll really appreciate it. It's also going to help you to build relationships with people. So if you can learn some simple and easy to memorize phrases, these are going to go a long way. Just phrases such as hello, thank you, it's okay, I'm hungry, I'm full, water please. Just simple things like this. You won't be able to express yourself as fully as you can in your own language, and I know that this can be quite frustrating. But just having some simple phrases like these is going to really help you to interact with people and to build relationships with them. You'll begin to speak to people, they will ask you questions back, and everything just goes a really long way to helping you feel happy and settled. So my first tip was about making an effort to speak. My second tip is about making an effort to listen. Listen carefully to the conversations around you, because exposure leads to familiarity. If you're listening to what people around you are saying, even if you're just at a restaurant and you're eavesdropping on the conversations at neighbouring tables, you'll begin to pick up on patterns, on words and on phrases. So as one example of this, on my last trip to Korea, we stayed with my wife's family. And I would hear her family use phrases like wash and go to bed, sikoja, or sit down, anja. And because I was hearing these things very often whenever we'd go visit a different family member, I began to get familiar with them. I would recognise them. So much so that as soon as I heard one of my wife's family members say anja, anja, I would immediately sit down without needing anyone to translate it for me. So if you listen out, you'll begin to pick up on words and phrases and you will learn them over time. My third tip is to make an effort to learn the alphabet. This is really going to significantly help you with pronouncing Korean words. Now again, I appreciate this is very intimidating. It's a very tricky thing because this is a completely different alphabet and it's a completely unique challenge here. So please think about Korean people having to learn English or other languages who are going through the exact same process. But learning the Korean alphabet is really going to be advantageous as it's going to help you to pronounce things correctly and to be understood as a result. As one good example of this, if you travel to any city, you'll see that most signs are bilingual. So you'll have place names in both Korean and in English, in both Hangul and Western alphabets. But if you look closely, you'll see there can be some differences in how words are spelled and how subsequently they would be most appropriately pronounced in Korean and in English. So as an example of this, when we visited Seoul, we visited the Doksugung Palace in the north of the city, which is one of the 3 major palaces and it's a great place to visit. Now it should be pronounced something like Doksugung, but if you look at how it's spelled in the Western alphabet and how we pronounce it in English as a result, it'll be something a bit more like Deoksugong. Now if you said this to a Korean person, they may not understand what you're referring to. So rather than focusing on how it's spelled in English and trying to pronounce it appropriately, look at how it's spelled in Korean and how would you best pronounce it that way. If you do that, you're going to be able to pronounce it in a way which is much clearer to the natives and you'll be understood much better. Now my fourth tip is to not get disheartened. And I'm speaking from personal experience here. So if you watch a lot of YouTube videos and you're reading guidebooks to help you learn Korean, you might find they really stress this point about Korean being a very logical and clear language. And I will say that doesn't really match my own personal experience. This is a very subjective thing that will vary from person to person. So some of you watching this video may completely disagree and feel that Korean's a very logical language and you're able to learn it and pick it up very quickly. But I know that there'll be others of you who have struggled a bit more and are maybe getting disheartened. And I just want to say to you, you're not alone. My fifth and final point is that some guides to learning Korean, including some pretty famous courses, will probably get you learning words and phrases first, and then they'll approach learning the alphabet. Now, I've already made the point that learning the alphabet will help you to learn pronunciation and to be more accurate in your pronunciation of words. So I would suggest doing this as a first step, learning the alphabet at a very early stage. And that's going to help you to pronounce words and phrases more correctly, more appropriately. And I think this is really going to help you to be understood. So that's all for this episode of Anglo Korean. I hope this has helped you whether you're planning a trip to Korea, perhaps the first of many, or whether you're just interested in learning the language at home. If you have any comments or questions, whether you agree or disagree with me, leave us a message and put them in the chat below. But until next time, goodbye.